We now know that all 14 weapons will be returning to Monster Hunter Rise. There will be no new weapons, and Prowler mode unfortunately will not be returning. So far, we have seen the Longsword, Greatsword, Bow, Hammer, Dual Blades, Sword and Shield, Lance, Gun Lance, Light Bowgun, and Insect Glaive. We have also seen the Switch Axe and the Charge Blade, but they were basically just getting beaten up by monsters, so we haven't actually seen any attacks from them. So, where are the missing weapons? And more specifically, where is the heavy bowgun? And where is the hunting horn?
Dumo plays.
They could just be holding these weapons back to show a 4-player co-op session with 4 weapons that haven't really seen much time and haven't been talked about much. However, what if there's more than that being done? What if there's larger changes coming to the functionality of these weapons, and that's what they're holding back? For Charge Blade and Switch Axe, I'm not sure there will be major changes. They have a unique feel, and they function quite well as it is. I feel like all they would really need to do is update for the wirebug moves and balancing them to get them to the point where the team is comfortable with where they're at. However, I could see some bigger changes coming to the heavy bowgun and the hunting horn. The heavy bowgun has seen changes, but nothing drastic. The biggest changes were probably in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, and those big changes were mainly due to Valor mode. Once you entered Valor mode, it allowed you to roll out a siege mode, which would reload your weapon. From there you could sprint with your weapon out in any direction, and then slide, which granted you iframes, and you could either continue sprinting after your slide, or you could slide back into siege mode pointing in any direction. All this while increasing your damage. The damage was crazy, the mobility was crazy. Putting it together, you basically just had a broken weapon. It was easily at the top of the meta in Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate. Meanwhile, we have the wirebug in Monster Hunter Rise, which is going to be giving the weapon some of its mobility back. It's going to be very interesting to see what the wirebug allows the weapon to do, and if they give it any more tools to play with. Another interesting thing to note is that Ichinose is directing Monster Hunter Rise, and he was also the director on Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate when the heavy bowgun saw its largest changes. So far, we've only seen the heavy bowgun in a cutscene where it was pretty much the size of the girl carrying it on her back. I feel like the reason for this is that they do have more to show about the weapon and its changes. Now, what about the hunting horn, which we haven't seen in any way, shape, or form yet? The hunting horn seems like a fairly difficult weapon to balance. Monster Hunter seems to rotate weapons in and out of the top tier quite often, but there are some mainstays. For starters, the Greatsword will always deal the most single-hit damage. That's a key aspect of the weapon. This means that it will almost always be seen as a top-tier weapon. Meanwhile, you have the Hammer, which is the KO King. It does good damage while being the best at knocking out monsters. Now we get into the Hunting Horn, which has great exhaust and does knockout damage, all while buffing the teammates around them. If the Monster Hunter team wanted to buff the Hunting Horn by increasing the knockout damage, they'd have to be very careful not to go too far. If they increase it to close or past the Hammer, it makes the Hammer less relevant, and then you have a balance issue in the game. The same goes for damage. If you were to make the Hunting Horn a top tier damaging weapon, you'd run into a balance issue where not only is it outputting a top tier amount of damage, but it's also allowing everyone else in the group to deal even more damage as well. While balancing other weapons can be as simple as increasing damage or decreasing damage, the Hunting Horn isn't quite so luxurious with its updates. If you go too far in any one direction, you either make the weapon next to useless or just well overpowered, and it's a very fine line to walk. They have to make sure that the weapon can keep up with other weapons while not going too far when it buffs all the other players on the team. Unfortunately, this means that the weapon will always be a little bit more difficult to solo monsters with, as the damage is a little bit lower, but it also gets better and better the more players that you have. So how do you balance it for single player and then scale it up for teams of 2 to 4 players? On top of that, how do you make worthwhile changes? They tried double notes in Generations Ultimate. The idea was that playing notes by hitting the monster would grant benefits over someone corner duding, just playing notes off in a corner. If you played a song that was made up entirely of double notes, it would play that song plus the previous song at the exact same time. This would allow Hunting Horn players to keep their buffs up easier as long as they were being aggressive. Some of the biggest changes to the hunting horn in Monster Hunter World were actually quality of life changes. They put all the songs that the hunting horn could use on screen. They also allowed you to queue up 3 songs at a time before playing them, and even allowed you to select the order at which you could play the songs. All this while having longer songs deal more recital damage. The team on Monster Hunter Rise has already shown changes due to the smaller screen size of the Switch, and more specifically the Switch Lite. The increased size of damage numbers was one of the changes. The other is the new potion icon. Just increasing the size of everything on screen that we got in World would make for a very cluttered screen of any hunting horn player. Now, to add to all of this, prominent Monster Hunter YouTuber Gaijin Hunter had recently said that the Monster Hunter Rise director Ichinose happens to love the hunting horn. This all leads me to believe that they'll be making some more changes, that possibly this is the reason that they're holding back the weapon to show us the changes in more depth later. They will probably have to find a way to have the weapon play multiple songs at once, or to make changes that allow for more damage opportunities. Although, as stated before, just simply increasing damage makes it very difficult to balance the weapon. Either way, I think it will be rather difficult to move the changes over from Monster Hunter World to Monster Hunter Rise, which will create a need for them to change how parts of the weapon work in order to have it keep up with everything else. Why do you think they haven't shown off these 4 weapons yet? Will they drop another trailer and show them off with wirebug moves? Are they just waiting to show them off in co-op gameplay? Do you think there's some significant changes coming to the weapons? I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comment section down below. If you enjoy my content, I invite you to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified when I go live or upload new content. There's also a link to my Discord server in the description. Feel free to join us if you're interested in more conversations on there. This has been Dumo Plays. Until next time, give your pal a pat on the head from me, and have a great day.